there. Welcome to the Her Business podcast. This is Suzi Daphnis. I am your host. I'm the CEO of Her Business. And at Her Business, we help women step out of the day-to-day and lead businesses that don't rely on them. And one of the ways we can build a business that doesn't rely on you is to have you be more visible. So today's episode is a really special one because we're talking about that exact thing, visibility. How do I get more people knowing about me, knowing about my products and services? Now, I'm not into the noisy look at me kind of visibility. What we're talking about here today is actually meaningful visibility, the kind of visibility that opens up doors, that helps you build relationships, powerful relationships, and that actually grows your business. Not more likes and follows, but actually grows your business. I have a special guest with me today. Her name is Jules Brooke. She's someone who has built an incredible platform, becoming more and more visible and helping women do that. She's the founder of the She's the Boss community, which is a community for women business owners 45 plus. She's the host of a podcast that has featured hundreds of women from around the world. But what I love most about Jules is how intentional she is about connection, both the connections she makes and the connections she helps others make. She's a true super connector. Now, in this conversation, we're going to be talking about podcasting and how to make podcasting a strategic tool, not just for the content of your podcast, but for building relationships, expanding your network, and increasing your influence. Now, if you don't have a podcast, or if you are not thinking about having a podcast, it doesn't matter. What we're talking about is how to grow your influence, how to be more visible to the right people, how to be more visible in a way that actually creates traction. That's what you're going to get from this episode. So let's dive in. Hey, Jules, welcome to the show.
Hi, Suzi. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I'm delighted to have you here, especially since we actually met in real life just a few days ago. And
lovely.
And it was wonderful. I do love a bit of in real life. And also you've had me on your show as well. So it's all happening. It's all happening.
It is.
Now, I want you to introduce She's the Boss to our listeners. Now, you started it in 2020 and you started, which is a membership organization for women, and the podcast followed shortly after. So tell us a bit about that, but also what made you decide that the podcast was the right strategic vehicle to build your profile and to build that community?
Okay, so firstly, I have to say I'm not as strategic as most women are, and so I tend to be quite tactical. How it started was actually started in late 2019. I managed to get myself a show on Ticker TV, which is a streaming TV network. And I called it She's the Boss, and I started interviewing female founders. So that was kind of where it all started. And then when we went into the lockdowns, because I'm in Melbourne, so we were locked down for a long time, what happened was I lost the TV show. And at the same time, I had developed this huge appetite for interviewing women. I loved it. So the first thing I did was I started a YouTube channel and started interviewing people on YouTube. And that is a whole lot of palaver. It was lights, it was technical, it was editing, whatever. And my partner at the time, my partner still now, is an audiobook producer. And he said to me, you should do a podcast. And I was like, I'd never listened to a podcast. But I said, okay, well, I'll give it a go. And I think he very generously offered to produce it, thinking I would do 5 or 6. And by the time it got to 50, he said, oh, my God, this isn't fun anymore. And my son put up his hand and said, I'll start producing it. So I just realized that I absolutely love interviewing women, particularly about their businesses and their lives. And from that, I guess the biggest thing that came out of it, and the reason why I did it was that She's the Boss is about women 45 plus running businesses. I feel like we're not visible enough. I have a big problem with the fact that all we ever see is the Janine Alice's and the Melanie Perkins and the unicorns, the women who've done incredibly well. But what about the rest of us? There are so many normal women who are running amazing businesses. So I just went to go and find them and just loved it. So it was strategic in that I knew that I wanted to interview women. I know that it opens doors. So doing a podcast, for me, the big thing is that it opens doors to very influential people. And I guess if that was part of the strategy, but really it was just about wanting to share stories about women that I'd never heard of that I thought were amazing.
And I agree with you. I think that the stories of, the billionaire women are great, but not a lot of us can relate to those. And so we want to be sharing, the stories of the everyday woman who's growing a business and the trials and tribulations that go with that. And you've interviewed women from Australia and from the US, UK, Iceland, India, all over. And you talked about how it opens the doors to connection. So how has your podcast expanded your network and your access to other people's networks?
Well, I mean, I would call myself a bit of a super connector anyway, because I love meeting people. I'm incredibly curious about everyone. But what it did was it now means that I have about 450, I think I've interviewed about 450 across YouTube, my live stream and my podcast. And all of those women, by the time you've spent an hour chatting to them about their life, there is definitely a connection there. And so what it has done for me is it's allowed me to introduce women in Australia to amazing women that I think otherwise they would find it hard to do. So what I love doing is connecting women. And, it's allowed me to get to some pretty influential women and introduce people in Australia to those women as well.
Well, I'm one of the people you introduced to someone overseas. I was recently running a leadership summit, and you introduced me to someone who ended up being one of our keynotes for the summit. So I agree. I think super connector is a great description for who you
wanky,
are.
But
I think there's a book by that name. I'm pretty sure I read a book by that name at one point. But otherwise, grab it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you are a super connector and a great networker. But for women who might find traditional networking awkward or draining, does hosting a podcast change that dynamic and make it easier to build relationships?
I think it absolutely does. So firstly, I did all my podcasts with no video. And one of the things that I realized, and because we're doing this and you sent me a message and said there's going to be videos. So what happens for a lot of women is, oh my God, I need to make sure I look great on that day. A lot of women want to go to a hairdresser. It just creates an extra obstacle.
Yeah.
And so what I've loved about podcasting is that I can say to people, you can be in your pajamas. I don't care how you look. This is really just about, about us having a chat. And then you've got this, it's really like a phone call, really. It's kind of that intimate conversation that you have with someone one-on-one. And normally you're asking, I like to ask women, tell me about from when you were a little girl until now. And a lot of women, because I'm doing women over 50, a lot of them go, oh my God, I haven't even thought about that, or I haven't thought about what my first job was for 30 years. So it's quite interesting. And by the end of it, there is definitely that rapport there. And I think if you're quite introverted, and you would know because you're always saying you're introverted, it's a much nicer way to be able to connect with someone one-on-one and listen to their story and kind of get an idea about what they've done and what they're about.
And because there's a structure and you're kind of leading the conversation, so you're not there left with nothing to say because you are leading that conversation, and it's such a great authority builder. But it's not just the magic that happens on these conversations, it's also what happens afterwards. And so talk to us a little bit about what happens when the recording stops. Have guests gone on to become clients or collaborators or friends or allies, or have those relationships gone on? I would say
all of those. So one of the first people that I interviewed was an amazing woman called Sam White. And the reason I interviewed her was because my mum, who knows nothing about podcasts, I said to her, I'm going to interview amazing women. And she saw a photo of Sam White, who runs Stella Insurance in Australia, in Woman's Weekly, and sent me this photo, I think being quite facetious, going, is this the kind of woman you want to interview? And I went, yes. And so I went and found her. I do all my finding through LinkedIn. I contacted her. She's got a $40 million business in the UK. And she and I became really good friends. And when she comes over to Australia, we catch up with each other. So that's just one of them. I interviewed Oprah Winfrey's ex-chief of staff of 11 years, who's an incredible woman called Libby Moore. And she's become a great friend, and I've sent quite a lot of people to her. But also when I'm talking to women in Australia that are looking to do a podcast on amazing women, I could introduce them, go, I know someone who wants to be interviewed in Australia. So that's worked quite well. I've got collaborations, definitely. I've got my bookkeeper and financial advisor is a woman that I interviewed. So absolutely, I've made allies, I've made friends, and I feel like we know each other by the end of that meeting. So I feel totally fine to contact them and ask them for a favour, and we stay in touch. There's another woman I interviewed, Susan Morris, who's the only woman in the world who owns an oil company, and she's at the UN. She's out of America, but she's an Irish woman. And I interviewed her and we became great friends, and she sends me texts all the time going, have you conquered the world yet? And I'm like, not yet, but I'm trying. But it's been absolutely beautiful. It has created friendships, it's created allies, and it's certainly created business connections that I'm able to utilise.
I love that. And you've recorded hundreds of episodes now. So what surprised you most about what it's done for your visibility? Because you're making these other women visible.
Yeah, I am. I think that it loosens you up and it, let me start again. What it actually does for your visibility is three things. It gives you content that you can share on social media, which of course is what we're all looking for. It shows the kind of connections that you've got. And also, if you can get someone influential, they are sharing it normally with their audience as well. So you get even more eyeballs on you. So what it's done for me is that it has taken my LinkedIn, for instance, because I love LinkedIn and I've been sharing it a lot. But really, at the beginning of the lockdowns, I had 1,500 followers. And I don't even know how, but by sharing all the stuff and I guess talking about why I'm so passionate about women over 50 being more visible, it has created, sorry, I'm just trying to think what I'm answering now. What surprised me most is that it gives you the content, it gives you the connections, and it pushes you out there. And somehow or other, I've got to 12,000 followers. And that, I think a big part of that has come from the podcasts.
And that's visibility. You know, when you go to your profile on LinkedIn and you can see you're connected to so many people, like, wow, she knows people. So I think definitely in the area. And you are passionate about visibility, and you mentioned that earlier, and making more women visible. You have programs about visibility. We'll talk about that as well. How do you define meaningful visibility in a business context?
Great question, because I talk about how you need to have power and influence if you want to get change, if you want to make change happen in the world, and so many women are purpose-driven. And when I talk about power and influence, I love to say not the kind of influence you get on Instagram. I'm not talking about the kind of influence that you get thousands of followers because you wear a bikini or something like that. I'm all about what's between your ears. And so meaningful visibility for me is you need to know what you want to be known for, and then you need to go out and be consistent in your messaging around what you want to be known for so that you're visible to the people that matter to you or to your business. There's no point. I mean, I guess one of the things that a lot of women say to me is, I've been thinking I'm going to do a podcast with my best friend. And I love that idea, but there is no business strategy behind that at all. So I'm like, that's great. Do that on weekends. But if you want to grow your business, then you need to think, who do I need to get to? Who is sending me customers? And therefore, they are the kind of guests that I need to get on my show. So, for instance, I'm coaching a woman in America at the moment who has a business called Raw Like a Woman in Construction. I've literally just got off a call with her. She started off with 65 people on LinkedIn 2 months ago. She has now got over 650, and this week she had 27,000 views on her post. So the next thing I'm saying to her is, we've got to get this podcast now, because what's happening is these very high-profile women are connecting with her, but she's got nothing to say to them really other than thanks for connecting. So I said, the next thing you need to say to someone who's influential and loving your stuff is, can I interview you? And and I said to her, you don't want the project managers. Like I say to people, if you work in customer service, you don't want to really be interviewing the girls at the checkout. You want to be interviewing the head of customer service for Coles or the head of customer service for Google. And the same thing with her. She needs to be interviewing CEOs and big leaders in construction in the US. So she's about to do that, and that will open all the doors for her.
That is such good advice. And I want to mention, and I'm going to give everyone your details later, but Jules actually does workshops where she helps women get their podcast up and running. And so now you can hear, like, why would you want a podcast? Because, everyone's got a podcast. But again, if you have some strategy behind it, and it's like, who am I connecting with? How am I raising my profile? How am I making meaningful, visibility? Then a podcast can do that through the connections that you're making. Well, so you've talked about this a little bit, but I just love this topic of visibility. It's something I'm very passionate about, and what I've done for 30 years is help women, get out from behind their desk and connect with others. What is the difference between visibility that creates noise and visibility that creates traction in your business? You've kind of answered it, but I'd love to hear more.
I have. So I'd go back to that influencer versus influencer thing and say, if you want to be taken seriously in business, people need to understand what it is you stand for or what you do. And so therefore you need to be consistent in your messaging across all platforms. And so if you're just making noise and you're just, there's a lovely woman, Diana Newen, on LinkedIn, who's a comedian, absolutely incredible. She's got like 80,000 followers or something. But she has picked up the traction because she had a flood in her house and she did a happy dance over the floor that was that much underwater, which of course would have caught all our attention, and everybody has started following her. But what I would say is that's not going to do any, well, I mean, she is a comedian, so it probably works for her. But for those of us to do, here's my cat, or this is my favorite outfit, it's kind of not going to give you the traction unless you're a fashion stylist. So you've got to think about, you really do need to be strategic about your messaging and what you want to be known for, because if people can't latch on to what your meaning is, they won't follow you. They don't kind of understand what you do. And it takes more than one post for people to kind of get what you're about. So that's what I would say.
Consistency, drumming at home, coming at it from multiple angles.
But the same message from multiple angles, yeah.
So I want to go back to podcasting and visibility. Say I have a podcast and it is a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and there isn't a strategy. How do I course correct if I've already started but it's a bit bitsy?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would rebrand. I'd probably keep the same feed. In fact, that's what I'm kind of doing at the moment, because I've got my main podcast was called She's the Boss Chats. And I stopped for a year because I decided I'd do a live stream. This is probably interesting for people as well. So most of the platforms now, and I think StreamYard is probably the same, that you can do live streams out onto your LinkedIn. So I thought, wow, I've got like 11,000 followers on LinkedIn. I should do it. It'll be huge. Nothing. I got nothing out of it at all. I did it for a year. I interviewed someone every week and it was crickets. And so I've decided to go back and do another podcast, but I'm calling it She's the Boss Disruptors. So you can stop a podcast at any time and you can course correct. If you have something that's very bitty, I would consider starting a whole new stream. And renaming it and just getting it out there and pushing it out through the same channels so people will know that you had the other podcast. But and I would course correct as quickly as you can, because you'll get traction and you will start to see the difference it makes with your networks if you can get the right people on as your guests.
Right, because that says a lot about what you are about, like who you're interviewing. Like you said, the caliber of person. Right. And it doesn't mean everyone has to be interviewing CEOs. It's just what do you want to be known for, and what is the right sort of level of person for you to be interviewing. And so disruptors, we'll make sure we put the details for that. That's the one that I was interviewed for. Yes. Now, you have a Women of Influence program. So talk to us a little bit about that, and even, there's probably more strategies in that than just podcasting. So tell us about what's included in your Women of Influence program.
So I was known for PR. That was my thing. I had a business called Handle Your Own PR for many years. And so that was my online course. And then we have a woman in She's the Boss who has a e-learning platform called Wisdom, Nikki Callie.
Oh, yes.
And I was on her, she was doing a workshop and I was one of the speakers, and I decided to stick around and listen to an amazing woman called, can't remember her name now, Sam Winch. And Sam creates online courses for women. Like, she's amazing. She does the whole thing for you. So she's doing this workshop, and in it there was a little bit where she went, okay, I want all of you to think, if you were going to do a workshop, what would you do? And I was like, I've already got one. And then I went, actually, maybe I could teach people what I've used to grow my own profile, and it's not just PR. So I started off with the 4 steps to how to become a woman of influence, which was going to be PR, podcasting, LinkedIn, and I can't remember, speaking, I think it was. And as I kept going, I suddenly thought, what about networking? What about online courses? What about there's something else in there. There's 7 pillars anyway that I came up with, and I decided I'd create the course. And it has kind of led me in other directions because LinkedIn and podcasting are so close to my heart, and I love them for what they do. And I sort of put together this whole program for how to build influence over 2 or 3 years. Is you do each of these pillars, and by the time because I just want to say to people, you can't become a powerful, well-known person unless something magical happens to you. It's a slow burn, probably takes 2 or 3 years. But over that time, if you do podcasting and networking and LinkedIn, and then maybe do an online course or create something online, a Q&A or something, that combination allows people to have a little taste of you across lots of different elements. And all of those together will definitely, 100%, I guarantee it, grow your profile.
Absolutely. So there's a number of ways that you can connect with Jules. There's that program. She does the podcasting retreats. She's got the She's the Boss Network. I did a workshop with you. We were talking about just before we started recording on LinkedIn, which, as you've already indicated, is one of your passions. I found it very useful. I think it's going to be my favorite platform, Jules.
Yeah. All I want is I want the people at my events to walk away falling in love with LinkedIn.
Falling in love with LinkedIn. It was like the forgotten cousin. It was the forgotten cousin in my life for so long. It's like, yes, I know there's thousands of people following me. I don't care. Now I'm like, okay, let me add some value
because you want women who are running big organizations they've founded. They are not probably, I mean, some of them will be on Instagram, but the big heavy hitters will all be on LinkedIn. So
yeah. So we're going to put a link to all those things. Now, our tagline, and I know you'll enjoy this because you're very much a rule breaker. Our tagline here at the show is your business, your rules. I want to know, Jules, what does that mean for you in the way that you run your business?
My biggest rule is if you haven't got anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So I am very alert to the fact that we all need to support each other. And if you find that uncomfortable, you're probably not right for my community. I'm also about women over 50 and that so my rules are that you really need, over 45 and I've had some women, God love them, come to me and go, I'm 45 in 6 weeks and I can't wait to join your group. And I'm like, I'm not going to be checking your birth certificate. That's fine. But my rules are to be kind, to lift up the women around you. My favourite saying is be that woman that will mention another woman in a room full of opportunities. And I do that all the time. And I think we all have the opportunity. We can sit in a room, go, wow, look at the people here, and then go, you all need to know about this woman because she's amazing. And it'll make you feel good and it'll make other people feel good. So I guess that's what I'm about, lifting people up and not pushing people down.
I love it. You are such a gem. What would you like to leave us with?
What would I like to leave you with? I would like to leave you with the idea that you should start a podcast. That it doesn't matter if there are 5 million, I don't care if there's a podcast for every person out there. There is always an audience for it. And it's not even about the audience, really. It's about the people you can interview and the doors you can open. So I say to everyone, give it a go.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here on the show. You're awesome.
My pleasure.
What I loved about this conversation with Jules is how it reframes visibility. It's not about being everywhere or saying everything. It's about being known for something and then consistently showing up in a way that builds connection and credibility. And maybe you've been showing up about a particular thing for a long time, but now what you do is different. So maybe it's time to start showing up consistently about the new thing you're doing. And as you heard, podcasting isn't just about having an audience. Of course, we want an audience. It's about opening doors. It's about having conversations you wouldn't otherwise have. It's about positioning yourself in the rooms that you want to be in, even before you're in them. And if this episode has you thinking about your visibility, whether it's starting a podcast or refining your message or being more intentional about your network or using LinkedIn, then take that as your nudge. And if you'd like to connect with Jules and learn more about her work, including her programs and the She's the Boss network, we're going to put the links in the show notes. And you're going to find the show notes over on our website at herbusiness.com/357. We'll also have a little summary of today's episode and links to anything that we've mentioned. As always, I'd love to hear what resonated with you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with another woman in business who's ready to step into greater visibility. And please leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, or send us a direct message on Instagram, or, wherever you follow us. But you'll find us at Her Business on Instagram. Now, if you are new to the show, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please subscribe or hit follow wherever you're listening, just to make sure that every episode then lands in your feed. That's what I've got for you today. I appreciate you being here and letting me into your world. I will see you next time right here on the Her Business podcast. Bye for now.